start recording. We are recording. And Anne, can you call the roll, please?
Sorry, I was just sending one more text to
Donna.
Okay. Okay. All right. If you would please announce your name when I announce the jurisdiction. County of San Mateo.
Carol Groom.
Carolyn Blady.
Town of Atherton.
Rick DeGolia.
City of Belmont.
Julia Mates.
City of Brisbane.
Madison Davis.
City of Burlingame. Okay, I know that Donna is trying to attend. She's trying to dial in. Town of Colma.
John Goodwin.
City of Daly City.
Rodas Megbual.
City of East Palo Alto.
Carlos Romero.
City of Foster City.
Catherine Mahampur.
City of Half Moon Bay.
Harvey Rarback.
Town of Hillsborough.
Larry May.
City of Menlo Park. Menlo Park. City of Millbrae.
Wayne Lee.
City of Pacifica. Town of Portola Valley.
Jeff Alfs.
City of Redwood City. Redwood City. City of San Bruno. San Bruno. City of San Carlos.
Laura Palmer Lohan.
City of San Mateo. San Mateo. City of South San Francisco.
Floyd Nicholas.
Town of Woodside.
Daniel Yost.
Director Emeritus.
Pradeep Gupta.
Director Emeritus.
John Keener. Hi, Pradeep. Hi.
We do have a quorum.
And how many do we have?
We've got 16.
Okay, good. All right, we'll keep moving so in case anybody has to drop off. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. And before we start, I've noticed that these Zoom meetings tend to go a little longer than in-person meetings in my experience. And I'm gonna do what I can to kind of rein that in. And one thing is I really want to keep a tight 2-minute rein on the public comments. I know that's a small fraction of the comments that we all make. I will just remind my fellow board members to try to be succinct in your comments. And, let's try to get out of here on the early side for everyone's sake. So our first item is public comment. Does anyone want to address the board on an item not on tonight's agenda? If you can raise your hand in the app, that's the best way to do it. Looking here. And make sure you mute yourself if you're not talking. I see no public comment, so I will take an action to set the agenda and approve the consent agenda items.
So moved. This is Wayne Lee.
Thank you.
Carol Groom will second.
Okay, moved by Wayne, seconded by Carol. Anne, roll call vote, please. Anne, you there?
Oh, sorry, I muted myself and didn't unmute.
I hear you.
If you would please announce your approval or disapproval of the motion when I announce your name. Carol Groom.
Yes.
Carolyn Blady. Carolyn? Rick DeGolia.
Yes.
Julia Mates.
Yes.
Madison Davis,
Yes.
Donna Colson,
Yes.
John Goodwin,
Yes.
Roderick Das Magwal,
Yes.
Carlos Romero,
Yes.
Catherine Monpour,
Yes.
Harvey Rarback,
Yes.
Larry May,
Yes.
Kat Carlton, Wayne Lee,
Yes.
City of Pacifica, Jeff Alves,
Yes.
City of Redwood City, City of San Bruno.
Yes.
Was that Marty?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Laura Palmer Lohan,
Yes.
City of San Mateo, Flor Nicholas,
Yes.
Daniel Yost,
Yes.
and the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is the chair report. That's me. The one thing I will remind you of is I will resend. We were not able to collect all the feedback in time to do the CEO review for this meeting. I apologize. That's my fault. We will have it ready for August. We're in progress, but I will remind you all to provide feedback, and I'll send the form out, the questions out one more time tomorrow with the newsletter. And remind me to do that.
Okay.
And we will be ready to do that review for the August meeting. Other than that, I don't have anything, so we'll move on to the CEO report. Jan, go ahead.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone tonight. We have a lot going on. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to give lots of updates tonight because we have a lot going on. So even though we're all working from home, we're all working very hard, and there's a lot to report. Next slide, please. Oh, actually go back. So we're going to go over staffing, the load analysis like we always do, and then some updates on a lot of the programs that we're doing, both on the procurement side, resiliency, the energy programs, and then what's going on with regulatory, legislative, and then upcoming meetings. Okay, next, please. So staffing updates, we currently have one open position for a data manager. So again, if you know anyone who might be a good candidate for this, please send them our way. The position is posted on the Peninsula Clean Energy website. And then we've also made the decision with the uncertainty with COVID and the numbers changing, going up and down, that we will continue to work from home through the end of this year at least. And in order to,
At least, woohoo!
in order to make it workable for our staff, we're providing up to $500 per staff member for additional equipment they might need at home. We've suggested that everyone go in and get their monitors and their chairs and things like that. But if they need additional equipment like a desk, a different kind of desk, or depending on what their situation is, we want to try to make it as workable as possible for everyone. And then we're also providing a $50 per month stipend to everyone to allow them to upgrade their internet connections so that they can have the speed they need for all of these Ring Central video meetings. Next, please. So as we have been doing the past few months, I'll give you an update on the COVID load impact, looking at the impact on our overall load, monthly load shapes, and load shapes by customer type. And again, thank you to the Power Resources team, particularly Medi, who's been putting all these great graphs together. So if we go to the next slide. I think there's some background noise too, so yeah, there we go. This just looks, this one compares our load between April to June, the 3-month period of 2019 versus April to June of 2020. to just show you kind of how things have changed. And overall, there's a 7% decrease in PCE load compared to last year, with a 17% decrease in medium and large commercial, 21% decrease in small commercial, and a 9% increase in residential. And that's what all those different colors show. The residential is the dark red, small commercials pink, medium commercials orange, large commercials green, and industrial is blue. If we go to the next slide, it shows monthly load differences from March through June. So, or actually it's from January through June. So like if you look at the first set of double bars, that's January 2019 compared to January 2020. And it was pretty similar. Our load was the same in January, both years. And if you look at February, it was slightly lower in 2020 than in 2019, but not significantly. And then when you start getting farther out in March, we see that our load was 4% less than it was in March of 2019. In April, it went down it was 7% less. In May, it was 6% less. And in June, it was 8% less compared to the same month in 2019. We go to the next slide. This is just kind of a graphical or color depiction of it. And the red boxes are decreases in load and blue boxes are increases in load. So you can see like in that top level, small commercial, the significant decrease in load there. Whereas for residential, you can see the increase in load over time. So each row is a different customer type and the columns are the different months. Next slide. These are the load shapes by the customer type, and this is commercial and industrial. And if we look at large commercial, for example, which is the upper left-hand graph, the solid lines are April, May, and June of 2019, blue being April, orange being May, gray being June. And you can see that April and May were pretty similar last year, and then June picked up. But when we look at this year, which are the same colors but dotted lines for 2020, we see that under, the shape is pretty similar, but the difference between 2020 and 2019 is pretty consistent throughout the different months. So you can see that for large commercial, medium commercial, small commercial, and industrial. Similar, interestingly, for small commercial, it seems to pick up in June for both years. But again, the delta between 2020 and 2019 is pretty consistently the same, and the shape is pretty similar. But so it just shows how the use of the electricity over the hours of the day hasn't changed that much, but the volume of electricity that's being used has changed significantly. And then if we go to the next one, it shows the load shapes for residential. And the main difference here, so 2020 is the orange line and 2019 is the blue line, that the peak we used to see in the morning in April, May, and June is not so peaky, but the load continues to grow during the day, and then the evening peak is slightly higher than it was in 2019. So let's go on to the next subject. And this is for PCE overall, and it just shows 2020 in orange compared to 2019, and that we're continuing to track lower than where we were last year. Okay, we'll go on to the next subject, which is Merced County. So as you know, we presented to Merced in June. They agreed to move forward with a technical study. They made the request on June 11th to PG&E for the load data, and that load data was finally delivered yesterday by PG&E. So we're very excited about that. And we have brought MRW under contract to perform the technical study. And so those of you who were part of PCE at our very beginning might recall when the technical study was done for Peninsula Clean Energy to determine whether it made sense to form the CCA. So a similar, much smaller study is being done for Los Banos to see, does it make sense to the city of Los Banos to become a CCA? And what does it mean to us if Los Banos joins Peninsula Clean Energy? So that study will be going on for the next couple months, and then we'll be coming back to you with those results to report on that. And we'll also be pulling together another meeting of the board subcommittee to further discuss the governance issues of potentially adding another member to our board and to our agency. Next, but this is one of our goals, to increase the number of CCAs, and especially in the Central Valley. We have issued a number of RFOs, and in the next item, you'll be hearing from Siobhan about the integrated resource plan that we've been working on. And this work is helping us define what amount of resources we need to procure going forward. So we issued a long-term renewables and storage RFO jointly with San Jose Clean Energy, and that was issued last Wednesday. And the offers for that will be coming in on September 4th. And again, we'll get the board ad hoc procurement together mid-September to review those responses and also review another project that we've been negotiating with for a couple years now. But we're getting close to the end for that one. We've also issued another RFP for distributed energy resources, site evaluation and engineering services. And this is to evaluate the San Mateo County solar plus storage opportunities, such as the San Mateo Event Center, the San Carlos Airport, and a few other facilities that we've been reviewing. This is a two-step RFP where we will be screening the initial responses and then inviting qualified respondents to provide a more comprehensive proposal. So we're excited to be moving that along.
Jan, sorry to interrupt. Pradeep has his hand up. I just want to catch it in case it's something related to, just want to do in the timely manner. Pradeep, did you have a question about something in front of us?
Yeah, just very briefly, Jan. Does that study for Los Banos include benefits to PCE of their joining or not joining?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. The costs and benefits to both agencies.
Thank you.
Sure. Next slide. So I wanted to talk about the launch of Power on Peninsula. You'll be hearing more about this during agenda item 5 tonight, but I just wanted to give an overview, a quick update to you. So if we go to the next slide, Power on Peninsula is providing backup power for the county in the event of PSPS events, focusing on those customers who have been affected by PSPS events, who are in high fire threat districts, who might be low income, and who also are maybe medical baseline. So this was part of our resiliency program that we brought to you in back in January. And the programs are now live. And if we go to the next slide, just a quick overview of the two programs that encompass this. So the Power on Peninsula program, we are working with Sunrun, which is a solar, home solar company, who will be looking at solar and battery storage projects for single family homeowners and multifamily homes. And the other part of the program is our Power on Peninsula, focusing on medical baseline. And that's where we are going to be offering free batteries or donating batteries to customers who have a medical issue. And this, Peter will be going into this in more detail with you. So these are, and that one is focused more on renters and apartment dwellers, and whereas the Power on Peninsula is more focused on homeowners and multifamily homes. And the Power on Peninsula is to provide a battery from Goal Zero and a portable solar panel to recharge that battery should the sun should the power be out for a long time. And then if we go to the next slide, it just shows the timeline for this program. So we signed the Sunrun contract in June after you approved that last month. The website for the portable battery program is now live. Tuesday, we signed the Hassett hardware contract, and you'll be hearing more about that from Peter. And on August 5th, the website will go live for the permanent solar plus storage installations. The first portable batteries will be arriving at Hassett on August 10th. And then the second wave of batteries will be arriving in September 5th. And we're very excited about these dates because this will enable us to get those batteries out to people before the fire season starts. And the first PSPS event last year was on October 9th. So we're really glad that we're able to get this in a timely manner, and I'd like to recognize the huge effort of Peter and Kirsten to make this happen. Next slide is reach codes. So a number of cities have adopted reach codes, but a number are still working on it. And I've been reaching out to a number of these cities, and Raphael and I have been meeting with you to see what you need to move this forward now that you're able to focus on other issues other than COVID. And so we've been able to meet with 6 jurisdictions over the last couple of months, and happy to meet with more to get this on your agendas and to understand what you need from us in order to move this along. And I also wanted to just recognize Menlo Park. They adopted their reach codes last year. They've put forward in their climate action plan a very aggressive goal to become zero carbon by 2030, and which is probably the first city in the US to do this. And they're also adopting what they're calling a burnout ordinance, which means that as natural gas appliances burn out or they need to be replaced in existing homes, that those would be replaced by electric only, so that there's a transition to electric. So very exciting, and congratulations to Menlo Park to make that happen. Next slide. So there was an informational memo in your packet about the joint rate mailer, and I just wanted to highlight this to make sure you were aware of some changes that are occurring this year. So this is usually sent out in July. The schedule got changed because PG&E wasn't ready to do this because they changed their rates later than expected. So it's going to be going out in the next, within the next few weeks. It'll be sent in the mail by a joint mailer by PG&E and PCE, and by email from PG&E to those customers that are get their correspondence by email. And the 2 things I wanted to point out are first, that there's a change in how the power content label reporting is being done this year. And so from those suppliers that we receive greenhouse gas free resources, who are classified as asset controlling suppliers, which means they have a number of assets, but they don't specify which particular hydro project we're getting the GHG free power from. Their resource mix is now being reported to us in terms of the mix of their portfolio, what percentage is large hydro and which percentage is nuclear to make up that GHG free. So because some of the suppliers we've received this from, including Bonneville Power Administration, PowerX, and Tacoma Power, our product content label for 2019 will show 0.8%, or it may be rounded up to 1% nuclear in the portfolio. So I wanted to make sure that you were not surprised by that. And then the second item, and let's go to the next slide. This may be too small for you to see, but so the power content label is on the right-hand side. And the other side compares our rates to PG&E. So our Eco Plus is less than PG&E. Our Eco 100 is slightly more than PG&E. We all know that. We're 5% below PG&E for generation for Eco Plus. But PG&E is also including a product called Solar Choice in here. And the CCAs are not happy with this because this is a limited product that is not available to all customers. But they have this on there. And this Solar Choice product is less expensive than any other product. It's less expensive than PG&E's regular product because the generation rate that PG&E charges for their regular bundled service is 11.7 cents. This Solar Choice product is 7.3 cents. When you add in the PCIA, they have a higher PCIA than we do. The overall cost is more than our Eco Plus, but it's less than our Eco 100. And it's a little misleading. We don't feel that, and we've talked to the Public Utilities Commission, we don't feel that it's proper that a product that is not really available to all PG&E customers be included on this product content label, but it is. We didn't win this one, so we're hoping to get some leverage on this next year and that this doesn't happen again.
So Jan, sorry to interrupt, but if you add the PG&E Solar Choice generation rate and the PCIA charged specifically to Solar Choice customers together, you get the exact same generation rate as the PG&E base generator, or almost within 1% less.
Mm.
So okay. Never mind. I'm just kind of dumbstruck by this, but okay, we'll move on.
Yeah, this product is using new solar resources that we know solar has been going down in price. So that's what they put in here. You know, there's a lot of issues around that, but I just wanted you to know because you're going to be getting this in your mail or in your email, and we just didn't want you to be surprised. We wanted you to have kind of a early look at this. This hasn't gone in the mail yet. This is a draft. This is what we think it's going to be. And there will be a footnote about that Solar Choice product saying that it's a limited program available only to eligible customers. So just wanted to, and if you have more questions about it, we're happy to answer those. And Leslie's the one who's been leading this effort, and feel free to reach out to Leslie as well if you have additional questions. The next item is the EV Ready program. So EV Ready is our program to install 3,500 electric vehicle chargers. It's a $28 million total program, and $20 million of that is part of this Cal EVIP program, which is focusing on DC fast chargers, which are the real fast chargers, and the level 2 chargers. So that 20 million consists of 8 million from our funds and 12 million that we received from the California Energy Commission. And then there's another 4 million of PCE specific funds that we're focusing, that are not part of Cal EVIP, but that we're focusing for level 1 and level 2 installations, and particularly looking at multi-unit dwellings because the Cal EVIP program doesn't cover that. Then we have another 2 million for outreach and education and technical assistance, 1 million for workforce development, and 1 million for administration. So you all passed this $16 million PCE funded program last year. And we were planning to launch our program on August 4th, which is the 4 million focused on level 1 and level 2. We're going to delay that a couple weeks because the Cal EVIP program, we just heard like earlier this week, is going to be delayed from an October launch to a December launch. So since there is some intersection between those two programs, we are holding back on when we're launching ours. So we were hoping to tell you tonight we're launching and watch for all this stuff. So anyway, just wanted to update you on that. Next item, Cal CCA. So some of you may recall last year, back when life was normal and we were down at, was it Redondo Beach for the Cal CCA conference, there was a meeting of all of the electeds from the different CCAs who were at the conference. And we formed this local electeds subcommittee from that. I think a couple of, Rick DeGoli and Rick Bonilla are on that for PCE. And the idea is that you all as elected officials have a lot of leverage reaching out to legislators to make sure that what goes on is in our best interest. So there hasn't been a lot going on in the legislature. We'll talk about that in just a second. But we are planning a meeting of the local elected officials subcommittee. And I'm the Cal CCA lead for that. And we're planning that on August 14th at 11 o'clock. So if you're interested in that, please put that on your calendar. We'll be covering an update on the legislature. We'll be talking about the PCIA trigger and also what next steps we need to do, what the call to action might be. So I'm excited that we're getting this going again. And then the next item is regulatory update. We are working on setting up meet and greets with the PUC commissioners. These will all be virtual. So we've got a couple of these set up so far. Wanted to give you the dates and times for these for any of you who would like to join in these meetings. So the first meeting is with Commissioner Shiroma on August 29th, which is a Wednesday. I don't know what day of the week that is. And then the second one is with Commissioner Guzman-Aceves on September 3rd. So please let Shana know if you would like to attend, and we'll make sure that you're in the invitation and have all the information to log into that. Next item is legislative update. So the legislature will be back in session on July 27th. You probably heard that there was some positive COVID tests for a number of legislative staff and a couple of legislators. Actually, one in Southern California was actually hospitalized. So they backed off. The expectation is they're going to be back in session on Monday. And we have submitted letters of support for these items, only two of which have hearings set up. One of them is a bill by Assemblymember Ting, who represents part of PCE's territory, and this is to administer a loan program for schools for resiliency projects, including solar plus storage, and allowing CCAs to make sure that we're engaged in that. And the second one that has a hearing set is SB 1117, which corrects an issue with mobile home park residents not being charged the correct rate for their electricity. So we've been looking at this for a long time, and we're really glad that this one is moving to a hearing. So those two may actually move forward. The others, it's unclear if they will make a hearing and whether there will be any movement on those this year. And then lastly, the meetings that are, the next slide. So we've got the Executive Committee, Audit and Finance, CAC, and the Board of Directors next month. And then we're also planning for our board retreat on September 26th, like we usually have. And that's it. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Jan. I will, if anyone has questions, I guess, again, in the spirit of trying to keep things moving, I'll suggest that if there are quick questions, we'll answer them here. If there's something that sort of seems like a deeper policy discussion, we'll try to park those for later. Does anyone have any questions right now for Jan? Okay, I am not seeing any, so we will move on to the CAC report. Desiree. CAC report, sorry.
Yeah, so I just have a brief report on our meeting that was 2 weeks ago. Basically, we had a couple of updates from staff, one from Siobhan on power resource update, and another, we had a nice discussion with Alejandra on the community grants program. So they're putting that together, and they took some input on what we thought would be criteria that they could include when evaluating those grants and maybe things to include in the RFP. And then we spent the majority of the meeting actually planning our working groups and assigning members to those. So that's actually a later agenda item, I think agenda item 9 tonight. So I'll save the details of that until then, because we have a few slides to show you what those working groups are and who are the leads of those. I guess the only other thing to update is next month, we will have our election for chair and vice chair for the next year.
Okay. Thanks, Desiree. And as Desiree mentioned, we have 2 items on the agenda that are going to sort of address the CAC questions. So we'll come to those. Wayne, go ahead. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, thanks. I was just wondering if the chair would indulge having them do their presentation now, since they're already talking about CAC, if that's okay with the board.
Well, yeah, sure. Why not? Do you want to go ahead? Do you want to just give we'll move ahead to item, sorry, what is this? Item
9, I guess.
9, yes. Yeah. Go ahead, Desiree.
If you want, that's fine. Yeah, I think we'll have to have the slides advanced.
Sorry.
That's okay. It just.
No, I think I think it's reasonable to just keep moving with this.
Okay, so the next slide has the overview. Okay, so back in April, the staff were surveyed about project ideas that they could collaborate with the CAC. And basically we took these ideas and fit them into different focus areas. We ended up with 9 different focus areas depending on what the topic was. And at the last meeting, we decided to go ahead and form 9 working groups for each of these. So we took volunteers, and 1 member also volunteered to be the lead to help with scheduling those meetings. I should mention that these working groups, they're not all structured the same. Some of them may decide to meet monthly, much like the Reach Code group did for the past year or so. Others may meet quarterly, and others will just be on an as-needed basis. And so that's really up to the working group in collaboration with the staff member. So I believe in your agenda packet, you have not only a list of the members, but the staff members involved for each of the working groups. But we put together here a slide just to show you those 9 groups and the CAC members who are have volunteered to be on those groups. So the next slide. So the first is the transportation working group. So really this is going to look at EVs as well as the e-bike program, which is something else you'll be talking about tonight. The next group, or the next slide, sorry, is for building electrification. And then the next group is an education working group, which really is a group we've had for quite a while now, but we've added some additional members, so that should be great. The next one is a workforce working group, another one which actually was formed recently, but we've just kept on. And the next slide. So this is a new one for us, a resiliency and DER working group. So you can see kind of some of the projects that staff came up with listed there regarding this group. And the next slide is a legislative and regulatory working group. And the next one is strategic priorities working group. So this is the group that we'll be talking about, maybe that expansion in the Central Valley, as well as future options for Eco Plus, Eco 100, as we essentially Eco Plus morphs into Eco 100. And the last one, I think, oh, there's a couple more. So there's a marketing and outreach working group. And then the next slide is equity working group. So this is also a new one for us, but it was something brought up by staff. So we'll kind of put that lens on on all of the programs that are happening at PCE. So are there any questions? Okay, well, we look forward to giving you updates from each of these working groups over the coming months.
I'll just say that the CAC spent quite a bit of time sort of coming up with a working plan and these working groups, and I personally thought it was a really good useful discussion. And someone's not muted. I just wanted to thank Desiree and the CAC members for just trying to work on this and really think of ways they can contribute more to PCE. So thank you. Wayne has his hand up. Go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to thank the group. They've been working pretty hard. Very impressed with the quality of work they've been doing. I know it's been pretty hard, and sometimes it feels like you're not being listened to, but you are. And we do really appreciate your work.
And Donna has her hand up as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. So Desiree, I just have a quick question. Where does housing fall in under these working groups? So just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I
What does
guess
it?
maybe depending on what part of housing. I mean, I could definitely see it fitting under this equity one. If it's related to REACH codes, I mean, it would be under the building electrification. But it could also be under the one looking at DER if it's, you know.
Okay, so it's just basically not got its own group. It's sort of woven within all of the.
We didn't specifically have a housing working group. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Other questions for Desiree? Okay. There's one other item that I'll bring up later, which is just this liaison question, but I'll leave that where it is on the agenda. Desiree, thank you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Okay, that brings us to item 4, which is the IRP with Siobhan.
All right, thank you. Let us get back up there. All right, thanks everybody. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Siobhan Doherty. I'm the Director of Power Resources. I'm going to go ahead to the next slide. We have a long recommendation tonight. There's 3 parts to it. So the first part is approving the results of our IRP analysis as presented tonight, or in a form that's substantially similar to that presented, for the 2 required submissions, which are the 46 MMT and 38 MMT. And I'll go into a lot more detail in the following slides about what that means. The second recommendation is to authorize the CEO to determine whether to submit any alternative portfolios. So this might be a portfolio targeting our 100% renewable goals. And then the third is to authorize staff to use these results to complete the IRP templates and authorize the CEO to approve the final IRP to submission to the CPUC by September 1. As this indicates, the IRP is due on September 1. Our August board meeting is on August 27th. So we did not want to bring it to you guys on August 27th because that would only give us 2 days if there are any changes that need to be made. Also, the CPUC has been making some changes to the requirements even through June. And so we haven't finalized all of the analysis, which is why this is sort of a long recommendation. All right, next slide, please. For a little bit of background, some of this I went over last month, but wanted to go over it again tonight. The CPUC IRP was mandated by SB 350. 2018 was the first time that we had to present this report to the CPUC. We were going to be reporting every other year on the even year. So our current one is due September 1st. And the primary purpose is to help the CPUC plan for how we're going to meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals in 2030. So each LSC or load serving entity will provide the CPUC with their forecasted portfolio of resources they'll be procuring to meet those goals. And then the CPUC will use that to determine whether or not we're on track to meet our greenhouse gas goals. Next slide. So this just gives a little bit of an indication of what is electricity's role in meeting our targets. So one of our targets is in 2030 to be 40%, have our greenhouse gas emissions levels 40% below 1990 levels. And so you can see here where we were in 2000, what our 2020 target is, and then the blue line shows us going towards 2030. This results in a statewide goal of 260 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent for all sectors. We click again. And so the electricity sector is about 18% of this, or about 46 million metric tons. So one of the scenarios that we have to present to the CPUC is what we're calling the 46 MMT. And that is to meet this 40% below 1990 level goal that the state has set. The state has also set a goal to be 100% renewable through SB 100. Under this one, our target is 38 million metric tons, and that's about 15% of allowable emissions in 2030. So when we talk later, we'll talk about two different scenarios. We have to submit 46 MMT and 38 MMT, and we have to submit those scenarios in order to meet different greenhouse gas emission targets. All right, next slide, please. So the IRP is supposed to tell us how are we going to get to these targets. I'm going to make sure we're on track to meet whatever the electricity sector portion is of those targets. I'm going to hit that forward button. And again, there's two scenarios, the 46 MMT to meet the 1990 greenhouse gas levels, the 40% reduction, and the 38 MMT to meet the SB 100 targets. All right, next. So this is a biannual process that we go through. In the odd numbered years, the CPUC conducts modeling to create what is that greenhouse gas target. They identify an optimal portfolio, which is called the Reference System Portfolio, or RSP. And then in even numbered years, we submit our IRPs to the CPUC. So in 2019, the CPUC went through their modeling to create the Reference System Portfolio. And now in 2020, we're going to submit our plan to meet those greenhouse gas targets. And then after the CPUC receives each entity's plan, they'll aggregate all of the plans together and conduct some additional modeling to see that whether or not we're on track to meet those greenhouse gas emissions, and then also to evaluate the reliability of that resulting California portfolio for 2030. All right, next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, the reference system portfolio is what the CPUC creates in the odd numbered years. So this identifies what are the resources that are required for all of the CPUC regulated LSEs across California. So that includes the investor-owned utilities, the CCAs, and the electric service providers. And it's looking at three different things. How do we meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals? It looks at cost, and then it looks at reliability. Next slide, please. Within the IRP modeling, there are several different types of resources that are available. And there's different years that the CPUC has told us to assume these are available. So solar PV, available immediately. Wind in California, the CPUC has asked us to assume it's not available until 2022. Other resources are not available until later. So out-of-state wind, they don't think will be available until 2026. Offshore wind in 2030, geothermal in 2024 to 26, and then pump storage in 2026. So when we did our analysis, we're trying to look at meeting our renewable goals in 2025. So the model didn't choose some of these resources because they weren't available until after we're trying to hit our goals. So next slide. All right. So the reference system portfolio for the 46 MMT scenario, this is showing us what is the additional build out, what are the number of megawatts of new resources for different categories that will be built in different years to meet our 2030 goals. This is under the 46 MMT scenario. So you can see the total number in 2030 is just under 6,500 megawatts of new resources. And you can see there's a little bit of natural gas that's not being retained, so that's natural gas being shut down according to the model. And then there's a lot of lithium ion battery storage, a lot of utility scale solar, and then a bit of wind as well. And this is showing what is incremental each year, so what's being built out each year. All right, next slide. And then to meet that more aggressive greenhouse gas reduction target, you can see we need a lot more resources. So instead of 6,400, now we need 10,400 megawatts in 2030. And you can also see there's a lot more natural gas that's not being retained. So we're turning off 2 gigawatts of natural gas according to the model. You can also see we need more battery storage, more utility scale solar, more wind, both out of state and in state. You can also see that in 2026, it's choosing to build some pump storage. So that's what the blue is. And then everything else is pretty similar. You can see we just need a lot more resources to meet that target. All right, next slide, please. So the way that Peninsula Clean Energy has been approaching this, we're working with 3 other CCAs, East Bay Community Energy, Clean Power Alliance, who serves the LA region, and then San Jose Community Energy. And the 4 of us hired Siemens to provide modeling services to the 4 of us. Next slide. So as we talked about, we have to submit 2 different portfolios, the 46 million metric ton target to meet our 40% reduction from 1990 levels, and then the 38 MMT target to meet the SB 100 goals. We're also required to use a load forecast that was assigned through the California Energy Commission's Integrated Energy Policy Report. We also have to use assumptions and inputs in our modeling that match those used by the CPUC staff. And then the CPUC has created emissions targets for both the 38 and 46. And we have to submit portfolios that meet those targets within 1%. That's what's called a conforming portfolio. So as you can imagine, in order to get to our 100% goals, we would be significantly below those assigned targets. We are also allowed to submit an alternative portfolio that doesn't meet that, that goes below those greenhouse gas targets. We have to tell the CPUC how this meets the reliability and how we justify the assumptions that are in that portfolio. Next slide, please. So this is how we've done our approach. We started out by modeling how would we meet 100% renewable on an annual basis for the 46 scenario and the 38 scenario, and targeting that by 2025. And then we adjusted those portfolios by removing resources to bring our greenhouse gas targets to within that 1% of the assigned target from the CPUC. We've also asked Siemens to create a time coincident portfolio, and they're currently working on that. We don't yet have the results from that. Next slide. So this has a lot of information on it, but this is going through the different portfolios that Siemens is creating for us. I'll talk about which ones are we planning to file with the CPUC. Are they hitting that 1% within 1% of the greenhouse gas benchmark assigned by the CPUC? Are they meeting our 100% renewable energy goal, and are they meeting our time coincident goal? So the first one is the 46, what we're calling preferred portfolio. We're not planning to file this with the CPUC because the greenhouse gas benchmark is below our target, and the CPUC is not allowing us to file 46 million metric ton scenarios that are below our greenhouse gas target. It does, though, meet our 100% goal on an annual basis, but it's not a time coincident analysis. The next one is the conforming portfolio. So this one we will file with the CPUC. It's one of the required portfolios. It hits the CPUC's greenhouse gas benchmark, but in order to do that, we cannot meet our 100% renewable goals. The 38 million metric ton portfolio, the preferred portfolio, is similar to the 46 preferred, except for we're looking at it within this context of a California where we're building a lot more resources. We're still determining whether or not we will submit this to the CPUC. It does not meet the greenhouse gas benchmark. It's a little bit lower. It does meet our 100% renewable goal on an annual basis, but not on a time coincident basis. The next one is the 38 MMT conforming portfolio. Again, that's one of the required portfolios, so we'll submit that to the CPUC. It hits our greenhouse gas benchmark within 1%, but it does not meet our renewable energy goals, either on an annual or time coincident basis. And then finally, Siemens is working on a time coincident analysis for us. Depending on the results of that, we'll decide whether or not to submit that to the CPUC. It goes below, I expect it will go below the CPUC greenhouse gas benchmark, but it will hit our renewable energy goals. Because we're required to use the CPUC assumptions, we may not agree with some of those assumptions if we were to do this analysis on our own, using our own assumptions. For example, some of the costs, I think, are a little bit higher than what we've seen in the market. So that's one of the reasons why we're still waiting to get those results before we decide whether or not we want to submit this to the CPUC. Next slide, please. All right, so as I mentioned, we also have to use this this load assumption. So the CPUC's load assumption for us is 3,560 gigawatt hours in 2030. We represent about a little bit under 5% of the total load in PG&E's territory. And so we're assigned about 5% of our 46 MMT target is 0.630 million metric tons of CO2 in 2030. And our 38 target is 0.503. This load was assigned as part of a study that was done last year. So it doesn't take into account anything we might see as a result of COVID and the resulting economic conditions. But it is pretty close to what we would expect our load to be in 2030. All right, if you want to hit the forward button. For reference, I included what some of the load and greenhouse gas targets are for the other CCAs we're working with, as well as for the 3 IOUs. So you can see we're the smallest of these. So we have the lowest greenhouse gas emissions target. All right, next slide, please. So for the 4 portfolios that Siemens has modeled for us or completed the modeling for us, these are the resulting build-outs in 2030. So the first section shows battery, solar, wind, small hydro. Those are the same across all 4 portfolios because that's showing what we currently have signed or are planning to sign contracts for right now that will be in existence in 2030. And then the new resources show what the model is choosing for us to build and be in place in 2030 to meet these portfolios. So we can see across the board for all of the portfolios, we're going to be building about 350 megawatts of new lithium ion storage, a significant amount of solar that goes up and down depending on which portfolio we're looking at. And then wind that's around 300 megawatts, but changes a little bit depending on the portfolio. And then the last section of this shows us what's our greenhouse gas target and what is modeled as a result of that portfolio. So for the 46 MMT cases, our target is 0.630. And you can see our preferred portfolio, which is having us hit 100% renewable on an annual basis. That's resulting in a 0.410 million metric tons of greenhouse gases. So that one doesn't fit in with the conforming portfolio idea that the CPUC has assigned to us because it's too low. So to get to our target, we've removed 300 megawatts of solar and about 40 megawatts of wind, and that brings up the greenhouse gas emissions for that portfolio.
Siobhan, quick question.
Yeah.
The 46 MMT preferred portfolio, and this is the 2030 numbers. Why is there any greenhouse gas under that scenario?
Yeah, so the greenhouse gas analysis is done on an hourly basis. So you can see in this portfolio, we have a lot of solar. So we're getting enough solar generation to meet our load, but it's probably over generating in the summer and under generating in the winter. And so there's probably shoulder hours where we're relying on system power. And so the greenhouse gas emissions that we see is that system power.
Okay.
The time coincident analysis would get rid of that. We would be meeting our load every hour with renewables.
Okay. So if we were at the, if the time coincident analysis should be 0 or very close to it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Wayne has a quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that last statement about you have to raise your gas emissions. Did I hear that wrong, or can you explain that to me?
Yeah. So if you look at the row on this table that's second from the bottom, that's what the CPUC has assigned to us as our target greenhouse gas emissions for 2030, based on our share of the total statewide target emissions based on our load share. The CPUC is requiring us to submit portfolios that show a modeled MMT for greenhouse gases that's within 1% of that target.
So when you mean like we have to raise our GHG, you mean we have to find ways to reduce the amount of GHG?
No, the opposite. Actually, so this is for 2030. And so the way that we did this analysis is we started with this first column, the 46 MMT preferred portfolio, and that results in this 0.410 million metric tons of greenhouse gases. And that's too low for what the CPUC is requiring from us. And the reason that they're requiring us to meet their targets is they're concerned, one, around reliability, that there would be too much solar on the system and it could create reliability issues. And then they're also concerned about how they would model portfolios that are very different from their assumptions. So when we did the first portfolio, our greenhouse gas emissions are lower than our target, more than 1%. And so we had to remove some of these resources. So you can see for solar, for example, we removed about 300 megawatts of solar from 750 in our preferred case to 450 in our conforming portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, that just kind of seems counterintuitive. I mean, think they want us to lower our GHG. That would make more sense to me.
Yes, yep. That's something that we've been struggling with as well.
Sorry to interrupt. My impression is just that they want us to be close to that target just so that they can, I think it sounds like their heads would explode if everybody came in and started presenting them with things that were much lower and they had to somehow figure out a way to model a much more complicated portfolio.
Yeah, that's basically.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there other questions? Because this is a lot of information, I know.
I don't see any other hands up, so why don't you continue?
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So then we have some graphic representations of these different portfolios. So this is the conforming portfolio. So this is the one that we will file with the CPUC. It has the higher greenhouse gas emissions because it keeps us within our target. And you can see this is a cumulative number. So we're adding resources to get to a total amount in 2030. In our earlier years, we can see that dark blue is large hydro. It includes both in-state and out-of-state. And then that goes away starting in 2025 because we want to be 100% renewable. We also have some short-term contracts that are in the peach color in the earlier years. And then beyond that, it assumes all new build. But you can see it's primarily wind, solar, and then battery storage is what's going to be our portfolio. And then there'll be some purchases that we're making from the market, which is where we get the greenhouse gas emissions. Those are assigned to system power. Next slide. And then this shows us what this portfolio looks like compared to our targets and the California RPS targets. So the top blue line is showing what's our renewable target. So starting at 50% today and building up to 100% by 2025. And then the green line at the bottom is showing what's the California RPS target. And then the yellow line is what percent renewable is this portfolio and how does that compare to our targets? So you can see it's following closely with our targets in the early years, and then in 2025 and out through 2030, we're below our 100% target. But in all years, we are pretty significantly above the required RPS target. Next slide. And then this is showing the same, but for our 38 million metric ton conforming portfolio. So this is one that we will be filing with the CPUC. And you can see compared to the 46, we have a lot more solar PV, about 200 megawatts more in 2030, but similar amounts of battery storage and similar amounts of wind. And again, similarly, we see the large hydro in the early years, and then that goes away in 2025 when we're targeting our 100% renewable. Next slide, please. And so for this one, we can see, again, the same color, same lines, but our resulting portfolio is much closer to that 100% because we're targeting a lower greenhouse gas emissions number, but we're still not quite meeting it. We're still a little bit under our 100% target in each of the years. Next slide, please. So this is our 46 million metric ton preferred scenario. So this is targeting 100% renewable on an annual basis starting in 2025. So we have more solar in this portfolio than we have in previous ones. So about 300 megawatts more compared to the 46 conforming portfolio, a little bit more wind, and then similar amounts of battery storage. Next slide. And so this one shows us we're actually a little bit over our 100% target. In order to get to our 100% target, the way the model works, it ended up being at like 101%. So we're meeting that target in all years starting in 2025. Next slide. And then finally, this is the 38 million metric ton preferred. So getting to 100% renewable on a annual basis starting in 2025. Noticing actually there's an error on this. In 2025, that dark blue hydro should not be there. Will be 100% renewable in 2025. In this one, you can see we actually have a little bit less solar, but similar amounts of wind and battery storage. And the reason for that is the rest of the system has so much lower greenhouse gas emissions overall, so we don't need as much solar to meet our targets. Next slide. All right, so then there's 3 requirements for the submission. One is that we have to do a written narrative describing the IRP, including the modeling processes we did, the assumptions. I'm gonna hit the forward. The second is the Clean System Power Calculator. This is the calculator that creates that greenhouse gas number on an hourly basis. And then finally, what's called the resource data template. This will provide details on what contracts have we currently signed and what are we planning to procure to meet those targets. Next slide. So here are some of the next steps. We'll receive results from Siemens on the time coincident analysis. That's supposed to come in next week. We'll receive some sensitivity analysis results from Siemens on all of the portfolios, showing under different scenarios how might these change. And then we need to determine whether to submit either the 38 100% renewable on an annual basis portfolio or the time coincident. And then we'll complete the narrative and templates and submit to the CPUC before September 1st. Next, oh, sorry, question?
Pradeep has a question.
Yeah. Well, I will wait till she finishes, then I'll.
This is actually the last, I mean, we can go to the next slide. It just has, restates our recommendation, so we can take questions.
Okay, Pradeep, why don't you start off with questions?
I just wanted to make one comment, that is that I had a long discussion with Siobhan this afternoon about the IRP. And this has been a very interesting exercise because I was involved with IRP 1980s at EPRI. And my inputs were basically to the board were that Siobhan and the staff and Jen have taken a great deal of care and in a very complex way, because while they are trying to meet our own PCE goals of zero GHG in 2025, they have to meet those very narrow perspectives of PUC of 1%. So as Siobhan said, she had to actually add GHG in order to meet that requirement. which is counterintuitive, as Wayne said. But anyway, they have done that, and with the team comprising of Siemens and Siobhan and her staff and Jan, and I have promised to help out in any way I can. We are going to go through it, but I wanted to make sure that board understands that our IRP, our real IRP, which will guide the business, will be done much more carefully towards the goals we have for 2025, especially time coincident aspect. And this IRP, while it meets the letter of the law and also the requirements, will provide some guidelines and some insights, but it is not the blueprint on how we are going to be doing it. That's my input. Thank you very much, Siobhan, for your job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep. Okay, I can entertain comments, and then also I can entertain a motion.
I've got a question as well.
Go ahead, Wayne. Yep.
Oh, this is Daniel, actually.
Oh,
Go ahead, Daniel.
Sorry.
Wayne had his hand up, but go ahead, Daniel. Yeah.
Okay, I did too, but in the video. Picking up on what Pradeep said, Siobhan, and I apologize if you covered this and I just didn't note it. Can you speak to the binding nature or not of this IRP in terms of if we want to be more aggressive down the road and reduce our greenhouse gases more aggressively? Are we limited in any way by submitting this IRP or no?
Yeah, I don't think we'll be limited. The CPUC is starting a proceeding basically now to talk about how they might enforce IRPs. So it's a little bit backwards since they're doing this, it won't be resolved by the time we have to submit this. But the state obviously has very aggressive goals around greenhouse gas emissions. What the CPUC is concerned about is reliability. And I think we have a good story for how our portfolio will be reliable because we're targeting that 100% on an hourly basis. And CAISO has talked about moving some of their reliability metrics in that type of direction, looking at hourly. So I don't think we will be bound by these portfolios.
Thank you.
And I would also add that in the narrative, we'll include descriptions of if we don't submit an alternative portfolio, descriptions of what our goals are and how this desert does not align with those goals.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, Wayne, go ahead.
Thank you. Siobhan, thank you for this report. I know it's very difficult to try to boil it down for people who are not as familiar as you are. So are we comfortable with the underlying assumptions by Siemens and by and all the modeling? Because would we be better if the assumptions were different so then we can include more wind power or solar power into our portfolio? That's my question.
Yeah, thank you. We are comfortable with the quality of the modeling that Siemens has done. We are bound by the regulatory process to use the CPUC's assumptions. So we have to use them. We don't have any choice. I believe we were involved earlier in the process when the CPUC was developing those assumptions. There are some that we think are, for example, the cost assumptions, I think are a little bit higher than what we've seen. But I think that they are directionally and proportionally correct for the most part. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Other questions, comments, or a motion to follow through the staff recommendations?
I make a motion to approve. I'll second.
That was
This
Wayne?
Wayne.
Okay.
I'll second.
I don't think we don't have a motion yet. I was just reminding people to put their hands up in the software if they can, just because I'm looking at the participant window, not necessarily at all the camera feeds. Wayne has moved to approve the staff recommendations. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Harvey is seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? And again, please use the raise hand feature because I can't watch all the camera feeds at once. I am not seeing any hands up. If there's no further comments or discussion, we can do a roll call vote. And why don't you go ahead and call the roll?
Okay. All right, if you would please choose how you would like to signify yes or no, yay or nay, approval or not of the item number 4 when I announce your name. Carol Groom. Carol, oops. I need to unmute her. Carol.
I'm trying to, yes.
Oh, yes, okay. Carolyn Blady. Carolyn?
Yes.
Thank you. Rick DeGolia.
Yes.
Julia Mates.
Yes.
Madison Davis.
Yes.
Donna Colson.
Yes.
John Goodwin.
Yes.
Roderick Das Magwal.
Yes.
Carlos Romero.
Yes.
Catherine Monpour.
Yes.
Harvey Rarback.
Yes.
Larry May.
Yes.
City of Menlo Park.
Yes.
Wayne,
Oh, Betsy.
okay, sorry. Was that Kat?
No, Betsy Nash.
That's Betsy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wayne Lee.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. City of Pacifica. Jeff Alfs.
Yes.
City of Redwood City. Marty Medina.
Yes.
Laura Palmer Lohan.
Yes.
Rick Bonilla.
Yes.
Flor Nicholas. Flor. We may have lost Flor.
Yes.
Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Thank
Okay,
you. Thanks.
thanks.
And Daniel Yost.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. That moves us on to item 5, which is additional expenditure for the portable battery program. I'm not sure who's presenting this. Is this Peter?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. This is Peter Levitt speaking. I am our Associate Manager of Distributed Energy Resources Strategy and focusing a lot on our resilience programs, and this is one of them. Keep going, please. We're going to be talking about the Power on Peninsula program for medically vulnerable customers tonight. And the recommendation, next slide, please, is to approve an additional expenditure of up to $250,000 for the portable battery program for medically vulnerable customers that we've already launched. Our previous budget only budgeted for the actual batteries here. You can see $500,000 towards the 150 Yeti 3000X portable batteries that we're going to buy. That was approved in May, and since then we've expanded our partnerships to make the program more effective and to ensure that we're reaching the highest priority customers. So the new budget, the current budget is $750,000. That is comprised of a partnership with a local hardware store, Hassett Hardware, for $605,000, a $65,000 towards a partnership with a nonprofit outreach and enrollment partner, and then $80,000 for another partnership with a nonprofit outreach partner and additional marketing expenditures. Next, please. So I'll give you a little bit of background about this program. We'll discuss how we selected the vendor and the product. We'll talk a little bit about the program structure itself, the partnership with Hassett Hardware, and our partnerships with our nonprofit outreach partners. So in January, as Jan alluded to previously, staff published and the board approved a 3-year, $10 million energy resilience strategy developed by staff. In May, the board approved $500,000 towards the purchase of portable batteries. The program includes targeting qualifying customers such as medically vulnerable folks who are most likely to experience a PSPS event. And Peninsula Clean Energy will donate a portable battery to up to 150 qualifying customers, prioritizing those in medical and financial need. Each customer will receive 1 to 2 batteries to help them get through power outages. And this was all spurred by last year's PSPS events, but there are other resiliency factors too. Our priorities here are to target customers who are most vulnerable to the intersection of public safety power shutoffs, the power outages spurred by PG&E last year, and COVID-19. The idea is to keep costs low for our customers so that we can increase customer access to those who need it the most. Traditionally, backup power is with diesel fuel generators, and we wanted to prioritize clean power solutions over that as part of our mission. And through our partnership with HASIT, we're going to ensure that the batteries are used safely throughout distribution, storage, and battery operation. Over the last couple of months, we developed a request for information and sent that to 8 potential vendors, getting 5 responses. The company that we decided to choose is called Goal Zero. They are a subsidiary of a large energy company called NRG Energy. They're a large multinational that some of you are likely aware of. They have some of the highest quality battery products that from what we can tell. The product that we chose to purchase for our customers is the Yeti 3000X battery. It has 3 kilowatt hours of energy capacity. It has no on-site emissions because it runs on electricity as opposed to diesel. It's very easy to operate, and for this program, it will come at no cost to our customers. We are also purchasing a foldable solar panel product called a Boulder 200 briefcase. It has 200 watts of capacity. Again, no on-site emissions. You can fold it up so you can store it away in a closet or something. It plugs in directly into the Yeti 3000X so that it can slowly recharge the battery over time if there's an outage longer than a day, for instance. And like the Yeti 3000X, this comes at no cost to our customers. Next, please. So the program structure, we went back and forth a few times on what the best structure is. We thought about just directly purchasing batteries and coordinating with internally with staff to give the batteries out to our customers. We also looked at working with a logistics company, but the timelines for getting these battery products they're very delayed. There's a huge demand right now to get battery backup right now. So instead, we're working with a local hardware store, HASIT Hardware, who has 4 stores in San Mateo County. So some of you might have heard of HASIT Hardware before. They're a 3rd-generation family-owned business. And they're able to get the batteries for us because they already have an ongoing relationship with Goal Zero. They're able to get the batteries in August and September, and we'll dive into the details of timeline a little bit later. The partnership structure includes, under this one contract with HASIT, they're going to purchase the batteries for us, store them in their hardware stores, deliver them directly to our customers, and offer in-person pickup too, and do COVID-safe customer training both in English and Spanish. So it's like a one-stop shop, really, really great partnership. The customer targets, again, under here, we're prioritizing limiting participation to medically vulnerable customers who are most likely to experience future PSPS events. Next slide, please. So the partnership details are as follows. As mentioned, HASIT is going to purchase the products for us, and their procurement is staggered. So 75 batteries and 50 foldable solar panels will be delivered in mid-August. We already have a contract with them to do this. What we would contract, if this program were to be approved, we would contract to purchase 75 more batteries and 50 more solar panels that will be delivered in early September, which is great timing for the fire season. The batteries themselves cost $2,800 plus tax. The solar panels are $480 plus tax. Hassett, as mentioned, will also store these batteries in their hardware stores. It's very low cost. If we deliver them directly to our customers right away, there's actually no cost to store the products, which is awesome. They'll also offer to deliver these products to our customers in store, directly to a customer's homes, or offer a pickup location in store. The customers must sign a waiver to receive the products that indicates that they will be using them themselves and not reselling them, and also gets rid of any liability that PCE might have. The delivery fees are $100 to $200 per unit, depending on where the customer lives. And lastly, Hassett will be offering an in-depth training on how to use the products. This training will be offered in the customer's homes or at Hassett's stores. The trainings will be offered in Spanish, and the training cost is about $100 per hour, capped at 1.5 hours, but we don't expect them to go that long. Thank you. In addition to the partnership with Hassett Hardware, in order to reach our customers, we're developing partnerships with 2 nonprofits as well. The first is an organization called Senior Co-Siders. We've signed a contract with them. They are a nonprofit located in Half Moon Bay that provides services for older adults and adults with disabilities. More than 2/3 of our target audience is actually located in their service area along the coast from Montara to Pescadero. We are also drumming up a relationship with Puente de la Costa Sur. They are a nonprofit with core. They're a nonprofit with core social service and offices in Pescadero and La Honda. Their focus is on bilingual outreach and services, including to farm workers. Next, please. So the outreach for both of PCE's Power on Peninsula resilience programs are as follows. There's one that includes portable backup battery donations for renters, and one that also includes an installation of solar and backup batteries for homeowners, and that's the partnership with Sunrun that we've established. We are solely focused on the portable backup battery donations for renters element tonight. But the nonprofits will help out with both of those programs. As it pertains to the portable battery backup program, their enrollment support is to help eligible residents from all parts of San Mateo County navigate the eligibility criteria and enrollment for several programs, including Peninsula Clean Energy's resilience programs, getting customers sign up for the medical baseline program, and also getting them signed up for the emergency resources from Center for Independence, which is the backup power program that has been funded by PG&E. In addition, Senior Co-Siders will provide support for residents all around San Mateo who need help navigating the Sunrun program that was mentioned previously. For example, those with cognitive disabilities or early stage dementia. These nonprofits really touch a sensitive customer class that often have difficult times signing up for anything online or communicating with outside agencies. So their services are critical. Next, please. Thanks. So as you see, we initially requested $500,000 just for the purchase of portable batteries, but we have expanded that to include these other partnerships with Hassett, Senior Co-Siders, and Puente, and are requesting an additional expenditure of up to $250,000 for the expanded program. So we'll take questions now.
Okay, Carolyn has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question from Supervisor Pine. He was curious as to whether the cost of purchase for the batteries through Hassett is the same as the direct purchase from Goal Zero, or whether they had added a retail markup.
The cost with Hassett is lower than retail because we're able to achieve a bulk discount, but it is higher than if we were to purchase directly from Goal Zero. However, Goal Zero's timelines, they are they're providing batteries to each of the investor-owned utilities throughout California, thousands at a time, and they're experiencing unprecedented demand. So we actually could not guarantee that we would get batteries in time for the fire season this year, which is why we're going with Hassett, because they already have that existing relationship and have a guarantee timeline.
Thank you.
Other questions for Peter or the team?
Yes.
Oh, wait. Harvey, go ahead, and then Rick's got his hand up.
Okay. Is the only entrance to this program through those two agencies, or can participants directly access Hassett if they're in the medical baseline program? How do you get in this program?
Peter, you're muted.
Thank you. You can either sign up through Peninsula Clean Energy's website, and then we will coordinate with senior co-siders to get in contact with you, or you can get in contact with them directly. But they are the organization that will be working to organize all of the participants in the program, managing their eligibility and enrollments.
Thank you.
Okay. Rick, go ahead.
Peter, I'm just curious about what kind of protections we're putting in place so that these products, which have a good deal of value associated with them, over $3,000 with both the panels and the battery, don't end up coming independently into the market. I know that Sonoma had a problem with their charging stations, where they initially gave charging stations away in a program they had a couple years ago, and a bunch of them ended up in the market, and it became a big problem for them. And I just want to know what kind of protections we have to avoid that.
Yeah, that's a great point. We were thankful that we knew about issues like that ahead of time, and so we're developing a customer authorization form that Marin Clean Energy and Marin Clean Energy has also developed a similar authorization form that protects PCE and ensures that customers use the batteries themselves. We haven't finalized that form yet, but we're privy to that as an issue and will take the necessary precautions, working with legal on that as well. So hopefully we can make bulletproof language that makes it so that customers are not able to resell the batteries.
Just as a follow-up, is there any way that we will know if in fact the batteries have been used? And is there any kind of data transmission online that would inform us when the batteries are used or when the solar panels are used?
That's a good question. I wouldn't think about I don't think you would be able to track the solar panels, but I don't think that because these batteries just plug into an electrical socket, I don't think that they connect to Wi-Fi or anything along those lines. And so I don't think that you can track their charging and discharging data.
Okay, that might be something that we would want to look at, just so we can monitor how the program is working. If we don't really have information about whether the batteries are being used or not, it's going to be really hard to judge how well the program's working. I mean, I don't know that we could require some connection. It's just a thought, but we need to think about how we're going to monitor it to make sure that the program works and that it provides a real benefit. And obviously use of the batteries would be what we want.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Other questions for Peter? I don't see any hands up. Any public comment on item 5? Mark, go ahead.
Basically include in that agreement with them that similarly to what the California does and that what CARB does when they put out the subsidies for a battery electric car or a truck or something, they say they want to get like the trucks particularly, they want to get information on usage, but in a more gentle way. It could be basically that they agree to do a survey later on. I expect that they will use these batteries all the time, that they will actually use them to reduce their usage of electricity, that purchase electricity, and so that it'll be a matter of continuing to use them during the shutoff. That's sort of what I'm thinking would happen. And I have a question. We weren't able to get our act together to come in with an offer, but not a question, a comment. I think we can be able. We're planning to put internet as a service inside the battery, Internet of Things inside the batteries, so that the battery itself talks to both the owner and us when we get into production. But that's a ways off still.
That sounds very interesting. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. What organization what organization are you with?
I'm with Sustainable Energy Inc. So basically, we're creating ceramic semiconductor batteries and solar systems, and we're also going to do replacements for the materials for lithium batteries and neodymium for magnets.
Great, thank you. And I agree regarding using surveys as a means of following up to track program performance.
Yeah.
Okay. Jennifer, our council has her hand up. Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, just going back to the discussion a few minutes ago about waiver, working with Peter on the language for a recipient of the batteries to essentially sign off and agree to terms. But I want to sort of bring us into focus a little bit with how that might be enforced. So that's going to be the difficult part of the equation, is finding out if somebody were to resell the batteries, etc. So we can continue to work on language about how we would do that, and also what we would do in the event of discovering that, which I don't think is yet in the waiver language that we have drafted so far.
Okay. Yep. Thank you for that update. Kathleen Goforth has her hand up. Kathleen, go ahead. Kathleen, I'm not hearing anything. Are you there? Kathleen, are you there? Okay, your hand's down. We'll move on. I don't see any other hands up. Any other comments on this? And if not, I could entertain a motion on to approve the expenditure.
Ms. Wayne, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moved by Wayne Lee, seconded by Rick Bonilla. Any further discussion? Okay, Ann, roll call vote, please.
All right, if you would please give your signal for your response to the motion for item number 5. When I announce your name, Carol Groom.
Yes. Could I say one thing, Mr. Chair, because I kind of got disconnected during the comment period?
Yes, I was actually wondering if you were trying to get on. So yes, go ahead.
I'm delighted that you were working with the Haslett family and their chain of hardware stores. They're a great company and they're really community oriented. So I think this is a delight, just a wonderful partnership. And I want to vote yes.
An emphatic yes. Good.
Okay, thank you very much. Carolyn Blady,
Yes.
Rick DeGolia,
Yes.
Julia Mates,
Yes.
Madison Davis,
Yes.
Donna Colson,
Yes.
John Goodwin,
Yes.
Roderick Das Magbual,
Yes.
Carlos Romero,
Yes.
Catherine Monpour,
Yes.
Harvey Rarbach,
Yes.
Larry May,
Yes.
Betsy Nash,
Yes.
Wayne Lee,
Yes.
City of Pacifica, Jeff Alfs,
Yes.
City of Redwood City, Marty Medina,
Yes.
Laura Palmer Lohan,
Yes.
Rick Bonilla,
Yes.
Flora Nicholas,
Yes.
Daniel Yost.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thanks to staff for good luck on this. Okay, that brings us to item 6, which is approval of our building electrification awareness program. Is this Raphael?
Nope, it's KJ.
KJ, sorry.
Good evening, I'm KJ Janowski. I am the Director of Marketing and Community Affairs, and marketing is leading this project, and we're collaborating obviously with energy programs on this. So I'm here tonight to ask for the board's approval. Next slide, please. Of a 3-year agreement, approval to allow Jan to enter into a 3-year agreement not to exceed $300,000 with Gelfand Partners Architects, and it's for the purpose of this building electrification awareness program. Next slide, please. Just for background, you may recall that in January, the board approved this program in conjunction with the REACH Code Assistance and Technical Training Program. And it grew out of the learnings that we got from actually the first phase of executing the REACH Code program. And what was clear was that there is a need for additional developer and contractor education and training, and that one of the key points of resistance for building electrification REACH codes was the consumer's preference for gas stoves and the lack of awareness of modern electrical alternatives. Next slide, please. So the building electrification awareness and education program that was presented to the board back in January included these 4 elements, which was to include, to be able to showcase all electric buildings and electric building technologies through some mechanisms that I'll talk about in a minute, to recognize designers and builders and property owners within the service territory who were actually deploying these new technologies, and to engage consumers on induction cooking so that they didn't confuse electric induction cooking with the old-fashioned electric resistance coils. And then it also included a marketing campaign, an awareness campaign. We issued an RFP in March, we got responses in May, and then we made an award decision at the end of May, and we've been in the process of negotiating the contract terms and are here tonight to get your approval for that contract. Since we have a lot of building electrification programs in development, I wanted to take a couple of minutes and put the programs in context, and particularly in context of a customer journey, if you will. Next slide, please. So when we think about how someone approaches the idea of building electrification, we believe that one of the first things they need to do is become aware. So in other words, something like, it's possible to operate my building without using natural gas or fossil fuels. That's kind of the awareness phase. And then the understanding phase would be knowing enough to know that they were not sacrificing budget, features, functions, and that they can see clear benefits of electrification. In the consideration phase, the customer would would know or understand that they have options for designing and equipping their building, and that there's an ecosystem of builders, installers, tradespeople, and people who are knowledgeable enough to install and maintain the equipment. And then finally, the action phase would be that the customer or building property owner would say, I'm going to electrify my building, or I'm going to try to electrify certain aspects of its operation. So next slide, please. Peninsula Clean Energy's role at each of these phases of the customer journey is to inspire, to educate so that people have that understanding that they need to have, and then to provide some support capabilities so that they can feel comfortable that there is the ecosystem and the support needed to move in this direction. And lastly, to motivate the decision maker to make the decisions toward electric buildings. So next, please. So in terms of the awareness area and the inspiration area, we are participating with the Building Decarbonization Coalition on what is called the Switch is On campaign. It's a statewide campaign that will be generating awareness about, why it's important to move off of natural gas and onto electric appliances and electrification for building purposes. Next, please. The education piece is part of what's happening with this building electrification awareness program, and that includes things like recognizing, as I mentioned a minute ago, recognizing particular leaders and innovators who are deploying these technologies, providing information like case studies and collateral materials, providing tours. Now, tours right now seems like a bit of a dream, but we will also be doing virtual tours and some live streaming types of things, as opposed to, at this moment, of course, we're not going to be taking people through buildings and together in groups. And then we'll also have induction cooking demonstrations and hands-on induction cooking capabilities when the time is right for that. Next, please. In terms of support, one of the components of this proposal from Galfand Partners Architects for this program is a building electrification database. And so this would be a place that would be searchable, available publicly on our website, so that people who are considering these kinds of technologies or solutions for their buildings will be able to search and find examples of, maybe even designs, programs, or designs, plans, perhaps some images. So we're going to be collecting a lot of information that we can make available to people who are exploring these solutions. These other things here in gray are things that we are also doing, but it's not part of this program that we're talking about tonight. So I know you're familiar with the Building Electrification Technical Assistance Program that's being run for us by TRC. There's some workforce development underway. There are pilots such as the Harvest Thermal project that Raphael has spoken to you about before. Those are not part of this, but I wanted to put that in context because these all work together. And then next, please. In terms of the motivation, this includes things like incentives. So, you've heard about the heat pump water heater incentive. Other things are being considered. Of course, REACH codes is another way to motivate people to move in this direction. So that's how we're conceiving where this piece fits in to the whole customer journey. Next, please. Just briefly, I want to tell you about the Switches On campaign. This is not part of the contract with Galfand Partners Architects, but it is part of the $400,000 that was authorized by the board in January. So we carved out $100,000 to be applied against this awareness campaign. And this goal is to raise the awareness in general, as I mentioned before, and to address some of the misconceptions, and to involve the influencers like contractors and installers in a process that will include a website and contractor database tool that's being developed by the Building Decarbonization Coalition. The initial audience for this is not everyone. It is engaged homeowners that are engaged around energy, that are interested in that, new construction homeowners, and the industry influencers. Next, please. The idea behind this campaign is the timeline would start this fall, probably in November. that the actual media buys would occur in the Bay Area and the Los Angeles area, and it would run all the way through 2024. So it's a long-term campaign. The funding is coming from coalition members like Peninsula Clean Energy, and I'll show you the next slide, but don't go there yet. On the next slide, you will see a list of those members, the current members right now. There is the possibility that the tech funds that are being allocated by the Public Utilities Commission could be applied here against this campaign, and the Building Decarbonization Coalition has collaborated with 7 of the proposers for who are proposing to administer those funds, and those are that's happening in the we expect that to happen around the first quarter of 2021. So that's a possibility for some partial funding of this. Next, please. And these are some of the funders of the Switches On campaign. Next, please. So with regard to the partner that we would like to sign a contract with, that is Gelfand Partners Architects, and they are an award-winning green architecture firm, very conversant with LEED and zero net energy, and they have worked for decades with a group called Bright Green Strategies, which does green building certification and modeling work. Next, please. Other members of the team are the New Buildings Institute. I imagine many of you have heard of the New Buildings Institute. It's a nonprofit. It is the organization that's responsible for the Getting to Zero database of zero net energy buildings. Frontier Energy is a partner here, and they operate the Food Service Technology Center over in San Ramon, and they've been around. You may have heard them referred to as Fish Nick. They used to be called Fisher Nickel. And you know, they've been testing commercial and residential kitchen equipment for decades. This is really a top-notch member of the team. We're really excited that they're part of it. And then Green Technology is part of the team as well. It's a media partner that would be doing a lot of the video and that sort of thing. Next, please. So the deliverables for this project, this program, are collateral materials and case studies that many of these partners have already done. Some of those are in printed form, so they'll be available on our website. They'll be doing a call for entries for the database of electrified buildings that I mentioned earlier. And as part of that call for entries, the submissions will be reviewed by a jury to determine if there are some that will receive awards, and there will be some award recognition programs. This slide wasn't updated, I apologize. The awards are planned for 2021, 2022, and 2023, and those would be aligned with existing events that are already good platforms for this within the county. So Sustainable San Mateo County has its annual program. We recently supported the REACH Code Awards there. That's one possibility. Another is the San Mateo chapter of the American Institute of Architects, and they have every other year events. So there are a number of other opportunities. Actera is another possibility there. Induction cooking demonstrations are also a part of this. Virtual demonstrations would be what would happen in the early phases, and ultimately, once we are able to be out in person again, the idea is that some of these induction cooking demonstrations would take place at community events. The way that the contract is structured is that we aren't going to pay a lump sum and say, yeah, whenever things open up, we'll do induction cooking demos. It's being, the payments will be aligned with the actual deliverables of these demonstrations, et cetera. And then there's also going to be some coordination with the induction loaner program. We will also, from a Peninsula Clean Energy point of view, we will also be supporting through our staff and our owned and social media channels and earned media. We'll be promoting and making people aware of the tours and the materials and the database and the awards. So that's the program. Next slide, please. So up to 400K was authorized by the board in January, as I mentioned. I also mentioned that 100K has been allocated to the first year of the Building Decarbonization Coalition Switches On campaign, and the remaining 300,000 is what we're requesting your approval for this program with Gelfand Partners Architects over the next 3 years. Any questions?
Questions for KJ?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, on back on slide, I don't see the number, 73. In the gray part, it talks about workforce development, and you mentioned contractor training. And you said these were to be done by others. So I'm wondering who these others are?
I think you're referring to the next couple of slides, Shana, if you can move forward. A couple more things here.
Right there.
So just back one. So when I put the things that are in gray on that preceding slide that we'll eventually get to, those are other programs that Peninsula Clean Energy has in development or already underway. So the workforce development things that are happening here under the support for this whole effort are things that Raphael and his team are working on. I don't think that there is a plan that's come before the board yet around workforce development specifically, but it's a piece of what needs to be done to make sure that we have, installers and people who can maintain, a lot of the electrical equipment, whether it's heat pump, space conditioning or heat pump water conditioning.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Other questions or comments?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Rick.
Much in line with this, on Monday night at our city council meeting, which lasted until 12:15, part of what we did was we had passed over the multifamily building reach code issue last year because we were waiting for the state to come up with some kind of information. At that time, Monday night, we told staff to bring back reach codes for the multifamily buildings, all electric. Though they had recommended the electric preferred, which allows use of gas if you increase the building efficiency by 5%. We didn't go for that. We told her to bring back all electric, and we also requested that all the other reach codes that we approved last year, which were the electric preferred, be brought back because we want to change them to all electric also.
Excellent. It's good to hear.
Fantastic.
Laura's got her hand up.
Great, thank you. I just want to thank the PCA team for bringing this program forward. When I read about it in the packet, I was very excited about it. I know we've discussed at this meeting the challenge with getting adoption for reach codes, and I believe one of the barriers to that is just an understanding in the community about what is available and what's possible. So what is, in my mind, so exciting about this is that through these education programs and basically bringing the technology forward in front of consumers and other key stakeholders will help to demystify the potential future state for all electric. So I just hearty thanks, and I'm in full support of this program and looking forward to providing my support when the motion comes forward.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, I am not seeing any hands in the participant box. If there's no other questions or comments, I could entertain a motion on this one.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moved by Rick, seconded, was that Laura?
Yes.
Okay, moved by Bonilla, seconded by Palmer Lohan. Any further discussion? If not, then Ann, roll call vote, please.
Hey, if you would please signify your approval or disapproval on the building electrification awareness. When I announce your name, Carol Groom.
Yes.
Carolyn Blady.
Yes.
Rick DeGolia.
Yes.
Julia Mates. I think Julia has left. Madison Davis. Oh, Madison.
Oh, yes, sorry. And unmute.
Thank you. Donna Colson.
Yes.
John Goodwin. John? Roderick Das Magbual.
Yes.
Carlos Romero. Carlos? Catherine Monpour.
Yes.
Harvey Rarback,
Yes.
Larry May,
Yes.
Betsy Nash,
An enthusiastic yes.
Wayne Lee,
Of course.
City of Pacifica, Jeff Alfs,
Yes.
City of Redwood City, Marty Medina,
Yes.
Laura Palmer Lohan,
Yes.
Rick Bonilla,
Yes.
Flora Nicholas,
Yes.
Daniel Yost.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you all. That brings us to item 7, the e-bike program. I'm not even going to guess.
I believe that's me, Director Alfs. All right. Good evening, directors. Shana, would you mind? There we go. Perfect. Thank you. So good evening again, directors. My name is Philip Kobernick. I'm the programs manager for transportation programs. And it's my pleasure to present to you the e-bikes rebate program for your consideration and approval tonight. Next slide. Thank you. So the goal for this program is to improve accessibility for electric mobility to our customers with lower incomes. And the way that we're proposing to do that in this program is through a rebate for up to 300 electric bikes for our low-income residents over 3 years. The request in front of you tonight is to approve this proposed program, and the amount is up to $300,000 over 3 years. Next slide. Thank you. So a little background on e-bikes. So e-bikes are bicycles with an onboard motor and battery that assists when you pedal or use a throttle. And what that does is it makes biking less strenuous, allowing people to go farther distance and carry heavier things. So you can imagine this is a big help for parents with kids, like this photo over here, seniors, commuters, especially in showing up to work, not sweating. And then navigating hills and cargo are all made much easier and make riding a bike a lot easier for more people. We see this as a very low cost electric mobility option, especially compared to the purchase of a car, but know that it's still out of reach for a lot of members in our community. There is evidence that shows that e-bikes replace car trips frequently. A survey by CalBike found that between a third and half of e-bike trips are actually replacing a car. So there is also greenhouse gas reduction in alignment with our goals. And there are some other incentives in the US on e-bikes. Most notably, Redwood Coast Energy introduced a rebike this spring during Bike to Work Day, and that was a $500 general rebate. Our proposed program is different in that it focuses on customers with lower incomes exclusively. And the Bay Area Air Quality Management District has also received legislative approval to add e-bikes to their Clean Cars for All scrap and replace program, but that hasn't been implemented just yet. So our program is different in that it doesn't require a car to be scrapped. So really the proposed program for tonight is really unique in that it provides an e-bike rebate to customers with lower incomes. Okay, next slide please, Shana. So I'm gonna go over the program components here. So the first is, how are we making sure that we're improving accessibility of electric mobility to customers with lower incomes? And the way that we propose doing that is by focusing on customers with lower income. And the way we're defining that is customers with up to 400% of the federal poverty line. And I'll talk more about those criteria in the next slide. Next, please, thank you. And the next question is, how are we actually making these more accessible for folks? And the way that we're proposing to do that is through this rebate, which we're proposing at 80% of the purchase price of the bike, or up to $800. And e-bikes typically cost between $800 and $1,400 for the entry-level style bikes, if you're looking at an online direct-to-consumer model. And then between $1,400 and $1,800 is typical for entry-level e-bikes through an in-store purchase. So an $800 rebate is significant in making these bikes more accessible for folks with lower incomes. funds. Now, the next question is, how are we making all this process easier while also encouraging purchases at our local bike shops? And that's going to be done through a vendor enrollment process here. And that will, what that allow us to do is enable the rebate to be done as a point of sale discount for our customers. So it's a great benefit to them. They pay less upfront for the in-store purchases as opposed to paying the whole thing and getting a rebate later. And by doing this enrollment process, we're also going to be seeking to secure additional discounts on the bikes. Bike shops that I've spoken to have already committed to giving a 5 to 10% discount on MSRP for participation, which would all be in addition to the rebate, making these even more affordable. Next, please. Great. Now, the next question is, how do we make sure people are using their bikes? And that's where our partnership with commute.org, San Mateo County's Congestion Mitigation Authority, comes into play. What commute.org will be bringing in this partnership is a performance-based incentive. So after a customer receives the rebate and buys the bike, they'll be encouraged to register on commute.org's platform and log trips that they actually take through a bike. And there's also auto logging features that can be done through integrated apps like Strava. And commute.org will give gift cards and other incentives when people actually use their bikes. So it's kind of an encouragement to keep using them. Next. Great. The next question is, how do we make sure we're reaching people and then making sure that people feel safe on bikes? And that's where our partnership with Silicon Valley Bike Coalition comes into play in this program. So we have included in the budget up to $60,000 over 3 years for this partnership with SVBC. And what they'll be doing is providing safety classes, demonstrations, group rides when we're able to do that again, and other types of promotion. And a good thing to highlight here is that SVBC has extensive connections with the affordable housing community. They were involved in promoting the Bike Share for All program locally, and we plan on leveraging those connections to really make sure that we're reaching people. And the last program component here that I'll answer in the form of a question is, how do we make sure that we're doing well on this program? And the way that we're going to be doing that is by measuring our performance. So we'll be collecting metrics on customer satisfaction from trailing surveys. We'll be getting utilization data from surveys and also from commute.org to get a sense of how people are actually using them and get a sense of how successful this program is. Okay, next slide, Shayna. Oh, right, and we're also aiming to launch this in the fall. Thank you. So late October would be the goal. Okay, some more details on eligibility here. So as I mentioned before, the proposed cutoff is 400% of the federal poverty limit, which you can see on the table on the right. This is household income based on the number of people and the eligibility that this entails. 400% is consistent with other programs like the Clean Vehicle Assistance Program and other programs. And so we're looking to be consistent here. Another note is that we're going to streamline this as much as possible for customers. So I've had a conversation with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, MTC, about their new Clipper Start program, which is looking to consolidate the various transit agency discounts into kind of one approval process. And so they're willing to add our program, essentially. So if you qualify for the Clipper Start program and get the Caltrain discount, you would automatically qualify for our program. And we would also look for opportunities with CARE, FARA, CalFresh. If you live in an affordable housing, those would all be automatic qualifications for our program. And if you don't meet one of those auto qualifiers, we'll be doing an income verification. The other eligibility is that we are looking to limit this to 1 rebate per customer account. And on the bikes, they have to be new. We don't want people to get refurbished bikes. And we are proposing a MSRP cutoff of $1,800 on the bikes to focus more on the utilitarian, more entry level style bikes. These can get very expensive. So we're trying to focus more on the entry level. Next slide, please. So here is an overview of the budget. So $80,000 a year or up to $240,000 over 3 years. The 80% of the budget is built on the actual incentives going to customers. And then the remainder, 20% or $60,000 over 3 years will be on that, will be for that partnership rather with the Silicon Valley Bike Coalition. And to sum up, this is $300,000 request over 3 years. And I believe this is the next slide is the last slide. Great. So to recap again, The goal of this program is improving accessibility of electric mobility options for our customers with lower incomes. The rebate is for up to 300 bikes, and our request for you to consider this evening is approval of this program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Philip. We had a good discussion of this at the executive committee meeting earlier this month. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
I'll make a motion to approve. This is Wayne.
Okay, moved by Wayne. Is our second?
Second.
Larry May, seconds.
I heard somebody, I didn't quite catch who it was first.
It was
Larry May.
Rodas McBall.
Either one, it's fine.
I'm going to go with Rod this time. Thanks, Rod. Next time, Larry. So we've moved and seconded. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, not seeing any. If there's no other comment from the board, we will go to a roll call. Oh, Carlos, go ahead. Carlos?
Hello.
There you go. Okay. You're muted again.
Hello?
There you are.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I just had a quick question. How was it that we arrived at the 400% over the poverty line, which is approximately 60% of area median income for San Mateo County? But so it does kind of coincide with that number, but is there any particular reason that we landed on the 400%? And you may have said it and I missed it. I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Director Romero. So the 400% federal poverty limit is a pretty commonly used income cap for other programs. So another one is the Clean Vehicle Assistance Program, which also uses the 400% federal poverty level limit. And so we're looking to be as consistent as possible, so as to avoid confusion, and then try to be a regional player and using consistent qualifiers for that program.
Okay, thanks. It was just interesting that the number more or less coincides with 60% AMI number, which if you're working with affordable housing developers, that is the kind of maximum income in those developments. So you've kind of hit you've captured that entire universe by having the 400%. I thought that maybe that influenced. Okay, thank you very much.
Cool. And can we require helmets for these bikes?
I don't think we're.
no reason I thought of that, but yeah, okay. Okay. If there are no other comments, then we can go to a roll call vote. Anne, go ahead.
Okay. All right. If you would announce your approval or disapproval for the e-bike program when I announce your name. Carol Groom.
Yes.
Carolyn Blady.
Yes.
Rick DeGolia.
Yes.
Julia Mates, or City of Belmont. Madison Davis.
Yes.
Donna Colson.
Yes.
John Goodwin.
Yes.
Roderick Dasmogboal.
Yes.
Carlos Romero.
Yes, and if I could, I vote yes on the previous item. Sorry, I was muted out.
Jennifer, can we take that after the fact?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. Okay, Catherine Monpour.
Yes.
Harvey Rarbach.
Yes.
Larry May.
Yes.
Betsy Nash.
Yes.
Wayne Lee.
Yes.
City of Pacifica. Jeff Alfs.
Yes.
City of Redwood City. Marty Medina.
Yes.
Laura Palmer Lohan.
Yes.
Rick Bonilla.
Yes.
Flora Nicholas.
Yes.
Town of Woods, or sorry, Daniel Yost.
Yes to both.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you, Philip and staff, for developing the program. Okay, item 8 is mine. I will make this quick. We are creating a procedure to appoint a liaison for the CAC from the board. Last month, you'll recall, we approved some modifications to the CAC, including that we would formally assign a liaison. And I wrote a report for this, and I have to say, I think I really overthought this one. I presented a few different options. I think the simplest option would simply be that the board sort of allow the chair to appoint a liaison, and the chair could, we could decide on whether it's an annual appointment or a quarterly appointment or somewhere in between, and it could just be that the board chooses liaisons and they sort of come and go, you know, as circumstances dictate. Those are the 3 options where have the board chair be the liaison and the vice chair be the assistant, have the board chair appoint a liaison and vice alternate every year, or have the board and appoint a liaison and alternate on some quarterly or semi-annually or something. Questions or comments? Wayne, go ahead.
I would opt for the chair to appoint, and I'll make a motion for that.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion in terms of, is it annual or just sort of on an annual basis? Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second. Catherine Mahampur.
Seconded by Catherine. Thank you.
So there will be an alternate for this liaison, is that correct?
Sorry, say again, Rick?
I said, so there will be an alternate for this liaison, correct?
I
Yes,
would
an alternate. That's part of my motion.
Okay, good, thanks.
Sorry, yes, thank you. Okay, yes, so yes, I think, assuming we approve this, I would, next month, I'd come back and just formally appoint a liaison and an alternate for the coming year. Any other comments on this one? Is there any public comment? Okay, Michael, go ahead. Michael?
I think it would be helpful to have an annual appointment, just because I think then that both the committee members and the person in question could get a better feel for the committee and have some sense of the flow of the committee over a period of time.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think there's some continuity there. There's continuity versus just more exposure. I will say, regardless of who is our liaison, I will strongly suggest that other board members feel free to attend meetings. It's good to, I think it's a great group. They're doing some really interesting work, and I hope others will sort of be a little more exposed to them. Any other comments on the motion? If not, then Anne, we could do another roll call vote here.
Okay. All right. If you would please announce your preference, approval or disapproval when I announce your name. Okay. Carol Groom.
Yes, I'll vote yes.
Carolyn Blady.
Yes.
Rick DeGolia.
Yes.
Julia Mates, City of Belmont. Madison Davis.
Yes.
Donna Colson.
Yes.
John Goodwin or
Yes.
John of Coleman? John Goodwin, yes. Okay. Roderick Das Magwal.
Yes.
Carlos Romero.
Yes.
Catherine Montour.
Yes.
Harvey Rarbach.
Yes.
Larry May.
Yes.
Betsy Nash.
Yes.
Wayne Lee. Wayne?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. City of Pacifica? Jeff Alfs.
Yes.
City of Redwood City? Marty Medina.
Yes.
Laura Palmer Lohan.
Yes.
Rick Bonilla.
Yes.
Flora Nicholas.
Yes.
Daniel Yost.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. Thank you all. I will, if anyone is interested in being liaison, please let me know. I might reach out to a few of you and see and engage your interest, and I will come back with a appointment, probably on consent next month, but I'll make sure everyone is aware of it. So thank you for that. That brings us, we discussed 9 already. So that brings us to board member reports. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share with us before we adjourn? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing anything. In that case, thank you all, and I will see you all soon. Take care.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good
Be
night.
safe.
Night.
Good night, everybody.